Hello and welcome to the Bring the Spring competition. It's a competition we are launching in the beginning of 2025 here at LightAct, and it's designed for all Notch creators who want to use their Notch skills to create interactive projections with LightAct Media Server. The winners of the competition will receive some amazing awards, including free licenses, that will definitely make your effort worthwhile. On top of that, we will actually showcase your work at our booth at ISE 2025 trade show. For more information about Bring the Spring competition, please click on the link in the description below. On this link, you'll be able to download this LightAct project together with 2 Notch blocks that you can use as a starting point. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through so that you can get a quick start. If you are completely new to LightAct Media Server, you might want to watch the Introduction to LightAct video tutorial as well. So let's go through LightAct project and have a look at how everything is set up, and then we'll proceed to Notch Builder projects. Okay, when you'll open the starting project, you'll see our booth, and you'll see the tracking area and the 3D model where we'll project your content. There are 2 timelines here. One is for the content, which is this one, and then this one basically just takes care of the automatic movement of the girl here so that you can see the content. So if I stop this timeline, the girl is going to stop, and then you are able to simply move the person around. You can also copy the person, and then you'll have obviously two effects on the floor, but for now I'll just delete this one. So if I click on play or pause, then the girl will start to move automatically, and if I click on stop, it will stop. Now, how LightTrack is actually set up. So I would advise you not to move any of these things, although the most important one is this one, which represents the LightTrack sensor, and then this one, which is let's call it an abstract project or a abstract object or a virtual object, which basically takes care of the processing of the tracking data. So again, you actually don't need to modify anything here because everything is already set up for you. It's just so that you understand at least a little bit on how everything works. So as you can see here, if you select the LightTrack system and scroll down, you see that at the moment the tracking is set to simulate mode. If I stop, the tracking will stop working, and if I move the person around, it's not going to react. So let's select it again. If you enable LightTrack mode, you would have to have obviously a physical camera connected to the to LightAct, and that's what we'll use on the stand in ISE. So the idea is that you develop everything using simulate mode. We will basically judge your content in simulate mode, playing with the person just like you will during the development. And once we get on the site at the booth, we'll just stop the simulate mode and enable the LightTrack mode. And instead of the virtual person here, the content is going to interact with the actual people on our booth. So I think that's more or less it in terms of the tracking. The only thing that you really need to know. So you also have the LightTrack sensor, which is basically the representation of the actual depth camera that we're going to be using on the site. So please don't change these fields of view because they will affect your simulate mode. Okay, let's move on to the layers. So LightAct has a lot of a lot of layer templates with different functionalities, but um, you can also build a layer from scratch. And that's what I did for this project. So if you double click on any of these layers, and again, you don't really have to, because the data is already being sent to your notch asset. So if you double click on it, you'll see how the layer is constructed. So this is the play notch block node, where I'm seeing all of the exposed parameters of that notch block as input pins in the input pins in the node. And then I'm passing the rendered texture to the render texture node. So during your development, you will compile your notch block for media server. You will import the DFX DLL into LightAct, and you will change from the default one, which is this one, to your notch block. Once this happens, the node will adapt to your exposed parameters. And then you can either modify the parameters like so here, or you can create a variable. Let's just so that I bank like so, connect it here and connect it like so. And then, for example, you don't have to double click on the layer, but you can simply, which one is it? That one. You can simply modify the parameter here as well. So this is the workflow that you'll most likely be using. The most important input of notch block is, of course, the transform data, and I will talk about how this is set up in Notch later on in the tutorial. But what you need to know is that you need to have this node connected to the transform data, and you also need to tell Notch how many basically people LightTrack is detecting. So the moment is just one, and if I create another one, it's gonna be 2, and so on. Okay, so this is for the floor. And then I'm using this layer for Kurent, this, and I'm just gonna select it and move it closer. So similarly, I'll delete this one. I'm passing the LightTrack data into the notch block, and again, here are some parameters that I just exposed so that I can more easily adjust the various parameters. And then I'm rendering the output texture to the mapping, which is the Kurent wall 3D model, which is this 3D model. Another parameter that is important in Notch node, the play Notch node, is the resolution, which is in adjustable here. There's one other thing I wanted to mention. So here I've used 2 separate notch blocks, one for the floor and one for Kurent. There is a way that you would create only one notch block for both parts. It's only that in this case, you would have to use a notch block called multi-camera, and which basically combines the UV camera, which is what's required for the Kurent, and the other camera, the standard one probably, which is what would be required for the floor. Last but not least, there is this layer called LightTrack beta processing, and it is locked. So you don't need to unlock it, but just if you'll be curious, and you will do so, and if you double click on it, here you see how the data is being transformed. so that it fits our particular notch blocks. So the easiest ways for you is to not touch this, but just to work with the data that's being already sent, the data that's available for you in these two layers, the notch content for floor and notch content for Kurent. Okay, so let's talk about how everything is set up in Notch. So first off, I'm not an expert in Notch by far. So I'm not saying that this is in any way a good way to do it. I'm just saying that that's the way I did it and it works for me, and you'll probably do it way better. So the most important node when working with interactive installations, media servers, is probably the exposable array. It's certainly the node that you'll have to use when working on this in this competition, because this node works with this data coming in from LightTrack. This is the node that receives the data from LightAct. And as you can see, then I'm copying some arrays. You'll probably understand this way better than I do, creating the sphere that glows in the middle. And then there's the particle system here. And moving on to the notch block for Kurent. Again, here we are receiving the data from LightAct. By the way, I use a lot of these nodes to test before I'm compiling the block for media server and importing it into LightAct. It's a great way to use this node just to test the content without having to export it for the media server and then import it into LightAct. Then I'm getting the first element in the array, because in this particular block, the Kurent is only reacting to one person. Gets the position and then use the range remap, the output of which is used to control the brightness of these three lights. I'm exposing these properties so that I can easily adjust it inside LightAct. So I'm advising you probably that that's a good way to do it once you import the notch into LightAct, to expose the most critical parameters so that you don't have to re-export and re-import all the time. A very important note for this thing here, for getting the content for projection mapping, is that you need to select the UV camera when you export the block. The goal being that LightAct needs to get the UV camera's output so that inside LightAct you can then directly use it inside here. You see the output, and then we are rendering this texture directly into the 3D print, into the 3D model of Kurent on the wall. So if there's any content that's not being rendered by the UV camera, it's not going to be visible in the final projection.